The Artist Life podcast is brought to you by Real Creative Heart. Heavy the head that reps the crown. With love, your greatness is found. So rep your crown.
Live from Salt Lake, Utah, Art is Life.
Welcome to the Art is Life podcast with your host, Russell C. Holt, where we sit down with artists from all career fields and we discuss their perspectives on their art and what it means to them in life. So sit back, have fun, and enjoy the ride. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Art is Life. As you know, I am Russell C. Holt, and I am finally joined by, for those who have seen and heard the previous episodes that I've had, which will be out by the time this comes out. But in my previous episode, if you listen to Dom's episode or Aaron's episode, or in most recently Haley's episode, we finally have the woman, the myth, the legend, Jessica Hirsh on the podcast. So for those who have listened to those previous episodes and are wondering who is this Jess Hirsh person that people keep referring to, she was a classmate of mine and we graduated together at UNCG just this past May. And yes, she is a very big part of our cohort, as well as in the musical theater realm at UNCG. And as you have heard in the other episodes, that she was very involved with Dom and Aaron specifically, working with the musical theater students. But she's also an actress, so she doesn't just do musicals. And we'll talk more about that in regards to that. But ladies and gentlemen, we finally have Miss Jessica Hirsh on, and now you have a face with the name, and you can see why she's such a cool person. So thank you guys, and I introduce you to Jessica Hirsh.
Hello, how's it going?
Oh, it's going. We still doing it. We do what we can with what we got, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you for coming on today. And yeah, so let's just jump right into it. So, if you want to tell people, for those who don't know you, how did you come about on your artist journey?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and that Ohio is a huge dance state. So for little girls, they get potty trained and they get put into ballet class. And so that was where I really started, was with dance. And I didn't love it. I liked the recital at the end. I liked the costume. I hated wearing tights. It was because I started with ballet, didn't love it. And then my mom put me into a jazz class and a tap class. And the jazz I was good with, but I really loved the tap. And I was the worst in the class by far, because they had all had tap dance since they were really little, and I was starting tap at like 7 or 8. So for dance, that's technically like very, very behind. And it was very much so like, Jessica, you stand in the back and practice your shuffles while the rest of us learn. So it was, but I loved it. And at the school I was going to at the time, during the day, Laurel School, they have a really great arts program. And we had a theater teacher when I got to middle school who taught us tap in her dance class. And I did a play with her called Fairy Tale Courtroom, which was, it's a total theater for kids by kids play where fairy tale characters are getting interrogated in a courtroom setting. And I remember her telling me, like, hey, like, you're really good at this. And not only was I good at it, but she could tell that I liked it. And at a very young age, had a sense of professionalism in the sense of I really wanted what we were creating to be good, which 7 and 8 year olds and middle schoolers, that's not often like an attitude that you receive. And I did a ton of plays, and I started getting more heavily into musical theater in high school. And I joined the Fairmount Performing Arts Conservatory in the Cleveland area, which was the best decision I ever made because they treat their young actors like adults, like professionals. You know, they really don't, you know, they would do an equity show and the next show on their main stage would be a school edition of Les Mis. So they really didn't distinguish between like grown-up theater, professional theater, and youth theater. They believe that good theater is good theater. And I, in my own practice, really take that into everything I do. You know, it doesn't matter how much experience you have. If you can make me laugh, if you can make me cry, like that's where it's at. So then I went to Youngstown State University in Ohio to major in musical theater. And then when I graduated, I knew that there was a part of me that was always going to be a teacher. And I also knew that my entire background was musical theater and Shakespeare. And I'm like, what else? I want to learn more. And so that's why I auditioned for grad school, because if I was going to teach, I wanted that terminal degree to be able to teach at the highest level I can. But also, I just wanted to meet new people, go to a new place, learn more. And that's how I ended up where I am today.
Yes, nice, nice. So the teaching aspect, you said you always knew you wanted to be a teacher. What was the spark that was it that class that the way they taught, the way they treated you, and that's what you wanted to do that for young kids as well, or was it something else that sparked that?
There's a couple of moments that I can think of that were sparks. Number one was just the really brilliant teachers I had across the board in the arts. You know, I think of that musical theater teacher, Miss Summers, that I mentioned to you. I think of Mrs. Porras, who was our dance teacher at Laurel in high school, our director, Mr. Donnellan. They all understood, with me being a kid with very intense ADHD, that performing was a focus. And they really helped rein me in a way that was respectful to me as a child and a person. And that was something that I really latched onto at that age because, you know, my teachers in my core classes didn't know what to do with me. And then I would get to my music class or choir or whatever, and suddenly I felt like my teachers were nice people. So then on the flip side, I, like many people in the arts, have had teachers who were not so nice. And I do not believe we're teaching for the right reasons. And there's something about wanting to... when you go hiking, they say, like, leave this place better than you left it, or cleaner than you left it. And I feel that way about teaching as well. I want to elevate the teachers I had who were brilliant and kind, and help to start to erase the practices of the ones who weren't. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. So dance, you said you didn't like it, but what did you take from that helped with your journey as an actress?
Oh my God, the sense of discipline. When you're taking a ballet class at 4 and you're being taught that you are quiet when someone else is speaking, you need to sit down and wait your turn. You need to be quiet when you're waiting backstage. Those are lessons that a lot of people don't really learn until much later in life. Whereas in dance, it is really ingrained in your brain very, very early. And so the ways in which I think that really helps me in my acting work is the fact that I am the actor who did all of the homework yesterday. I pride myself in being someone who, when it comes to homework, getting off book, thinking about, daydreaming about my character, coming up with backstory, you don't need to worry about me getting that done because I already did it. And that totally comes from dance. Yeah.
Cool. Now, I want to touch more on that because I was just in my class and the teacher was talking about, acting being compared to the other arts is like forget what he said exactly, but it's pretty much the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the artistries, because when you look at musicians, dance, painting, etc., like you can practice, like there's a specific blueprint on what to do. You do these specific things and you sharpen your skill set. Whereas acting necessarily isn't like that. And then like when you look at the Australians and the English actors, how they treat it so much differently compared to American actors, because they do those things to sharpen the skills and stuff like that. But for us as Americans who don't want to be like that, don't want to be the sloppy actor and stuff like that, but necessarily don't know how to, do specific things to sharpen those skills, what would you say? Like, how would you approach that with your dance background to help you with that, doing that being able to sharpen those skills in the every day?
Yeah, so I also have a British drama school background with Shakespeare. Okay. So I do have, both that with dance. The thing and you've heard me say this so many times, and I'm going to say it to your viewers as well. We talk about, when I think of visual art majors in undergrad, all of my friends who were in like a painting class or a sketching class or a sculpture class, they would be in the studios in the arts building until like ungodly hours of the morning working on something. Same with musicians. The practice rooms at YSU were never silent. There was always at least one person at any hour of the 24-hour day practicing. And then we say, oh, well, theater, it's different. Well, my response to that is, no, it's not. Imagine if we as actors put, hours each day into what we do. And imagine what kind of work could come from that. When I taught my audition technique class with the musical theater department, we did a big brainstorm about the things that make up a great audition. So, being hydrated, warming up. But the biggest one that we all agreed was the most important was preparation. And I think that that's a wonderful thing to be the most important thing because it is 100% in your control. But actors really love to not sit down and memorize and not sit down and work. And when I think of the worst art I have produced, my most cringy audition stories, they were the times where I did not sit down and spend those hours. And those extra hours a day will accumulate into some really, really good work. Because here's the thing, I know people who will do like 5 auditions in one weekend. And they're going crazy trying to prepare for all of these different ones. And they don't really put the time into each of them that they need. And I'm like, well, man, if they had just focused on 1 or 2, and put all of their time into that, it might have been more fruitful. And so that's what I would also say is not only do you need to really critically analyze how much time am I actually spending on this, you also need to look where you are putting that energy. Jim would tell us about when we were getting ready for our theses, reading an entire biography on the playwright isn't necessarily going to be fruitful in helping you prepare for this role. So yes, analyze how much time you are actually putting into it, and then make sure you are putting that energy into a source that's going to lead to fruitful results.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Terrible time to pop up. Yeah, so with that being said, so it's all about what you get out of how you're preparing and like how is it going to serve you and stuff like that. For you specifically, when you're working on things, or when it comes to suggestions in regards to doing something every day, when it comes to acting, with the preparation, what does that look like to you, or what are the ways of preparing that an actor can do on a daily basis to sharpen those tools?
So it depends a little bit on the project. But I'll talk, we worked on Judas, Last Days of Judas Iscariot together, so I can speak specifically to how I handled that project. If you are in something where there is a script, you should be reading that script every single day. A script is usually I would say a 90-minute read. And the more you read it, the faster it will get. But the amount of times I've been in shows with people where the only time they ever really read the script was once before auditions and then once at that first read through, I don't think that's acceptable. Because the amount of stuff that you will get from reading it and rereading it and rereading it, number one, that's going to aid in your memorization. But number two, you're going to get a much deeper understanding of the text. When I'm doing a musical, that is all I am listening to. Until I am singing those songs with my harmonies in my sleep, I do not know it well enough. Because in musical theater, that's where we get into a lot of trouble sometimes, is we learn our music at the music rehearsal, we have a blocking rehearsal, and then we have a dance rehearsal utilizing that music we just learned a few days ago. But if people haven't been stringing that through and practicing that music, the dance rehearsal is going to be largely wasteful because they don't know their music. So it's really constant review, so that when you get into the rehearsal space, it's not about you trying to see if you're memorized. It's not about you trying to see if you can hold that harmony next to two people who are singing something completely different. It's about rehearsing and playing and trying things, which that's what rehearsal is supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Memorizing by rote, so make sure it's like it just comes and it's not you're thinking about it, because then that's when the real work can begin. You can actually play.
And I had an acting teacher in undergrad who said, if you really know your character and you are really doing all of the work, needing to call for line wouldn't happen, because the only thing that would come out of that character's mouth next
is the lines,
is what is in the text. Yeah.
So what if I'm not actively in a project? Like how can I use this preparation that you speak of to better just overall get better at acting?
Yeah. So number one, you need to be reading. I recommend read something for pleasure that isn't acting related. Keep your brain working on something. The second, and this was a piece of advice that Shori Walker gave us when we had our master classes with her, which is, okay, you're not in a project. What's your dream role? Do you know his monologues? Do you know her songs? Have you recorded sides for that role?
Mm-hmm.
If not, now is a perfect time to do it because you're not working on anything else. And so when someone says, oh, Russell, your dream role, oh my gosh, they're doing that show up the street.
Mm-hmm.
You've already been preparing it for 5 months,
Right.
you know? So that's how I
stay
think.
ready.
Yeah, stay
You don't have
ready.
to get ready. You stay ready.
Yeah, and there's no reason not to, because if you believe that you are an artist and it's a role that you feel you are going to play and you should play and you love, it shouldn't feel like work to be learning it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So for all those actors out there who say you can't do anything, Jess just gave you a whole blueprint on stuff you can do. And
there's always homework.
And also too, compared to or different from like the other art forms where, you know, you got these specific things you have to do. I mean, acting, it's such more broad and you have so many more options. And I think that is what hinders actors from doing anything. As you know, we spoke about that. You know, we have fellow classmates who spoke about this. He's like, you have so much time and you can do so many different things, but then you get overwhelmed on like, oh, well, I don't want to do anything because most people want to be told what exactly what to do instead of doing something.
And that's a big issue, I think, with a lot of the more commercialized theater and how people are trained for it is, you know, having been brought up in theater at a very young age, when you're that little, you need to be told what to do. And then suddenly I'm 17 years old and I have a director who's telling me, do what you feel. Let's try, let's play. And you're a deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to operate outside of go here, sing a note on this word, walk here. And that's where the fun is.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about giving the actors agency, having them think for themselves. But also, you know, letting them know when they're off the path. But yeah, just more freedom. And
I was talking to my mentor last night about this exact thing and he was telling me that one of the things he will do is not tell an actor how to get there, but where in the space that they'll end up. And I jokingly said, well, yeah, you would tell me to end up there. And I'd say, cool, okay. And then I completely do my own thing and end up somewhere else. And he was always fine with it because he knew that what I came up with, having done all that preparation and work, was better.
Right.
But you need, again, it comes from the preparation and learning the role to be able to do things like that.
So switching gears a little bit, but when it comes to musical theater and acting in plays, where do you consider yourself? What do you after, you know, having your experience at UNCG and also what you're doing now? Where do you rank those? Where do you rank it? Like, is musical theater still first? Do you still consider musical theater actors? Do you consider you're just an overall actress? What do you see yourself as now?
So even before coming to UNCG, and I still feel the same way after, I'm an actor. I don't differentiate musical theater and plays, realism, Shakespeare, musical theater. It's all, to me being an actor, it's just the style. And something that musical theater performers, it's a danger zone that they get into, is there's this big trend of what are you first? So with actor and singer and dancer, there will be people who go, oh, I'm dancer first. Oh, I'm singer first. Oh, how do you rank your big three? I'm a singer, actor, dancer. No, you need to be actor first.
Mm-hmm.
Always. Mm-hmm. You always need to be actor first. When you get to the higher levels, everyone sings beautifully. Mm-hmm. Every dancer can do a triple turn. Who's going to walk in the room that there's something about them that I just am instantly drawn to? Who's going to walk in the room and make me laugh? Who's going to make me cry? Who am I going to watch and I think, oh my goodness, I would go to war for this person if this character told me to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm an actor, 100%. Audiences will forgive when it comes to musical theater. Audiences will forgive a crack of the voice mm-hmm. or a little bit falling out of a turn if that person is so committed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm an actor. Yeah.
Nice. So with that being said, what are your dream roles, or what are you hoping to do with being an actor?
Yeah, so I'm in such a funny limbo phase where right before COVID and everything shut down, there was this span of 2 years where I was playing so many of my dream roles and I was just crossing them off the list left and right. And I did the grad school thing. We were in a show every semester. And I reached a point in my second year my second year was when I was instructor of record for musical theater classes. I reached a point where I found I would dread going to rehearsal, but I was so excited to go teach. And then I went, uh-oh, wait a minute. So when it comes to what my goals and dreams are, I mean, every kid dreams of being on Broadway, which if that happened, dope. Right. But also, being the person who can help something click for a young actor, there's nothing more exciting to me. And when it comes to roles, the roles that are left on my list of, oh my God, I need to play that, I still got 30 years before it's even age appropriate.
Which is perfect because then you can establish your teaching.
Exactly.
Boom. You'll be waiting for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I've 100%. And I've reached a point where, there's this whole audition hustle culture, and that's not me. That was me when I was 20. But because I love to teach so much, a part of me is why, if I have such a passion here, I can do that dream role at a regional or a community theater and feel fulfilled. I don't need to be completely killing myself every single day just to get a contract. And the people who are doing that, and that is their life and their hustle, more power to you. But I am happy that I reached a point where I was able to really actively spy into myself and say, I don't think that's me. Yeah.
So when that happened, was it that when you got excited for teaching more as opposed to rehearsal? Is that when you started really making that connection and this hustle hard, the audition culture is not?
Yeah. I think I started to notice it when we were gearing up for showcase season. And I was there was this weird, and it's a very general comparison I made in my head of, I can, especially with this MFA terminal degree, right? I can audition against 2,000 plus girls who look just like me for this one role. Or I can apply for this teaching job against maybe 30 other people who have similar credentials. And I had this whole idea of, I'm going to move to Atlanta and then I'll figure it out when I get there. And I'm I don't like that. I'm after, it took me 7 years to complete undergrad. I took a year off to audition for grad schools, and then I immediately went to grad school after. I have not had a place that I have lived in for more than a few years since high school. Mm-hmm. And I was just, there was something about stability mm-hmm. that I crave so much more than a role or a contract. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it really was that showcase season where we were immediately getting surrounded by that hustle culture, mm-hmm. where I was like, I have other options. Mm-hmm. And I think not would I be happier with those other options, but I think I would be happy mm-hmm. with those other options. And, you know, one of the musical theater BFAs asked me at one point, she asked, Jessica, do you want to teach or do you want to perform? And I said, both, whichever comes my way first.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's an important thing to talk about is it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. It can be yes and it doesn't also too, like your ideas and your goals can shift and stuff like that. And that's something I think that is important for young actors.
It's so important
to know. So yeah.
Yeah, and younger actors, they get told, oh, you have to only do theater. Theater needs to be the only thing you're focused on. And then the most interesting actors to me, especially when they're young, are the ones who do a lot of things. Mm-hmm. You know, the ones who are like, yeah, I really love to read. Oh, I go hiking. Oh, I have this hobby that I do. And it's like, dear God, do something to supplement your art, not just your art, because you will drive yourself crazy.
Art is life, guys. So there's art everywhere you go outside. And yes. Go to a park, just being a human, that is being an artist, and it will inform the industry a lot more. So with that being said, Jess, what is your motivation now going forward? You graduated, you got your position that we'll touch base with in a minute. Looking back, you know, as you're when you were younger, going through the artistry and the dance and stuff like that, and you had your motivations there. But what's your motivation now going forward?
My motivation now, especially after, still during, but after the big COVID shutdown, we have a lot of people who are hurting in this country, mm-hmm. and they need storytellers, and there are people who really want to tell stories. Mm-hmm. With the high schoolers that I will be teaching specifically, what motivates me is the fact that, you know, they lost like 2 years of their education. Mm-hmm. Now, that happened to a lot of college students, but could you imagine that happening during your formative years before your brain has even finished developing? And so my motivation is so largely to create a space for those kids, because they got a lot taken away from them. And I remember there was this trend going around on Facebook during spring of 2020 when like all of the high school proms were getting canceled. Mm-hmm. And there was this like trend going around of people being like, post your prom photos in like solidarity with the class of 2020. And I was like, how terrible. These poor kids don't get to go to prom. And then they're seeing us be like, here's me at prom. Sorry.
Yeah.
And yeah, being a space for those kids, because I was that kid mm-hmm. who needed that space. And I was very, very lucky to have it. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case for everyone.
Right.
So that's what motivates me.
Cool. Now, speaking of, you've touched base on it a little bit throughout, but with this art that you were teaching and acting, how important is it to you in your life, or why is it so important? Why do you think it is important for not just you, but for all people?
We are surrounded by art. Art is life. We are surrounded by art every single day, mm-hmm. every single day. And even people who have no involvement in theater or music or dance they go to movies. They see the tour of Wicked when it comes to their town. The second that Lion King tickets in any city go on sale, it is insane. So everyone is surrounded by art. It really is everywhere. And what's really important to me is in training those artists to be the person who lifts up rather than tears down. I've touched on the fact that there are a lot of teachers who I don't think they like kids and I don't think they like teaching. And everyone has that memory of what that one teacher said to them when they were 6. And you don't want to be that teacher.
Right.
There are people who you will meet who are 20 years older than us who will say, oh my God, I love musicals, but I don't sing. And I'll be like, you don't or you won't? Because those are two different things. And so many times they'll say, oh, well, I had a really mean music teacher in elementary school, and that made me not want to sing anymore. And I'm like, that is the saddest thing.
Yeah.
That a teacher can do that to someone. So in going into this post at the Salt Lake School for the Performing Arts, it is so important for me to be a catalyst for storytelling. Yeah.
So piggybacking off that, she spoiled it, guys. She
Oops.
But yeah, so I was gonna ask, so what's next for you? Do you want to touch base more on that? So you are at Salt Lake. Can you say it again?
School for the Performing Arts. We call it SPA.
That's a clever name for it. So why don't you touch base on what you will be doing there?
Yeah, so I am the musical theater specialist there. So I am teaching musical theater 1, 2, and 3, which is the different levels of ability and experience as well. And then I'm also going to be teaching a couple of sections of Acting 1, which I'm super excited about, because the thing with this job that really excites me is I loved teaching the college kids. In the same breath, I found that I was having to do a lot of unteaching of things that some English teacher told them in high school about acting that is just not it. And I'm really excited about getting these kids at 14 and 15 years old and being the first thing that they learn. So I'm really excited about that with Acting 1. I am directing a production of Matilda, the musical, which is one of my absolute favorites. And that's going to be at the end of November. And we put that show up a few weeks before the Netflix adaptation of the musical comes out. So that's going to be really exciting. Nice. And then I'm also going to be a coach for the Shakespeare competition team. So Utah Shakespeare Festival, which is it's in Cedar City, and it's 3.5 hours south of here. They do a big high school Shakespeare competition every year, and I'm going to be a coach for our team for that. Nice. So it's really exciting to me that, this job, they saw that my specialties are musical theater and Shakespeare, and they're totally utilizing me in the things that I do. A lot of positions you'll apply for when you're starting out as a professor, it'll be okay, we're going to give you this movement for the actor 2 course and take this theater appreciation course, and we'll start to figure out where you fit. And it was really great that I walked into this job and they went, we read your CV and we interviewed you. Here's where you fit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Super excited.
That's awesome. So coaching and directing, are these new to you, or do you have experience in those, or does it is it a learning curve, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I've been a choreographer for a really long time. So and a dance captain for half of my life. And the dance captain, for those of you who don't know, is usually a person in the cast who learns all of the choreography and is able to fill in for the choreographer when they're not there. And so dealing with a lot of bodies in space who are looking at me for what to do next is not new to me. Directing on my own a full-length musical, this will be a first. I have co-directed before, but this will be my first directing on my own. And I'm really excited that it's for a show that I know very well and really, really love. But the whole competition thing for Shakespeare, and also they do the High School Musical Theater Awards, which leads to the Jimmys in New York every year. That is completely new territory for me. And I'm interested to see what the inner workings of that side of things are, because my high school, we didn't do any of that. The first musical my high school ever did was when I was a freshman. So that'll be something very, very new to me.
Have you reached out to anyone to get any advice, or are you just gonna wing it and see how it goes? Or
So yeah, when it comes to directing, I've reached out to a ton of people for advice. When it comes to the coaching, luckily I'm not the only coach. The head of the theater department at the school is in charge of the whole thing as well. So for that, I'm definitely not going to be going in completely blind. But yeah, directing, I reached out to a ton of people. And basically, like, once I got this job, if I was in the room with someone who has directed, the question I would ask is, what is the thing that you didn't know the first time you directed that you really wish you had known? And I got so many great responses to that. And I was not shocked to hear that the number one thing is preparation. There's your full circle moment right there.
Well, here's another full circle moment for you. As to you reaching out for advice with your directors, now you are at a position where you're going to have students asking you for advice and everything, and going down this path of teaching and acting. And all that. So what is some advice that you would give a student, either in terms of the arts as well as the excuse me, or in terms of just life in general?
Remember that it's supposed to be fun. Everyone at every level forgets that this is supposed to be fun. I mean, there's the classic, they're called plays for a reason. But yeah, it's the actors who are having fun with what they do that get off book faster and are thinking about their character more, because their work doesn't feel like work. Now, granted, sometimes it is. Sometimes you need to sit down and bust out that monologue, but you need to enjoy it. And the second you stop having fun, and the second you stop finding this art enjoyable, you need to have a conversation with yourself about why you're doing it, because it will become extremely soul crushing if you don't. And then the other thing I would say is everything can be led with kindness. Everything you do can be led with kindness. That will get you so much further than being a diva or being too harsh. In the 70s, we see a lot of articles about actors and how they acted in those earlier decades. And that's because back then, being a diva was how you showed how much you care about what you're creating. It was how you would show commitment to what you're doing. We know better now. And we know that we can achieve a lot of greatness with kindness first. So that's what I would say.
those are two good things. I would say, yeah, kindness, yes. And the old saying, like, kill them with kindness. You want to love them with kindness as well.
Yeah, and if I've taken a class or with a teacher who wasn't the nicest, or if I've done a show with a director who was really all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I always like to say is, all right, well then I'm going to be the kindest and most prepared person in the room so that I do not open the door
Mm-hmm.
for them to have anything to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great advice as well. Be prepared. Do your homework. Be prepared. Stay ready. You don't have to get ready, and you know, be kind.
And
Be
you're
kind.
always,
Rewind.
and you've heard me say this, but you're always auditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that in a way to make you like fearful or paranoid, but I say that in a way to motivate you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go to an audition, you might not get that part.
Mm-hmm.
And you might not be right for anything on that season, and you might not even get a callback. But that director might be sitting behind that table, kicking themselves, saying, "Oh my God, I really wish we had something for them."
Mm-hmm.
And then next time they see you, they might remember you and be like, "Oh my gosh, she was amazing. We need to bring her back."
Mm-hmm.
Or even, I've seen it all the time. One of my professors in undergrad would always say, "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard."
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that to be true.
Mm-hmm.
There's, there's often the kids who, when I teach, who are super, super talented. And then I have other kids who maybe aren't as like God-given gifted,
Mm-hmm.
but they are the hardest worker in the room. And those are the kids I am drawn to. The most talented ones are often the ones who disappoint me the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they usually sometimes are also the ones who aren't the kindest.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
that is very true.
But also too, I mentioned this when I was talking to Chris and Tiff. So for those who heard this saying already, you can hear it again. It doesn't get old. But there's a quote. It says, "There's always someone in the room that can bless you, but who are they watching? Yeah. But who are they watching you be?" So yeah, it goes back to like always being kind and nice to people. Just don't be an a-hole, and you never know what can happen and what can stem from that. So
Yeah.
and especially in this world, especially now, we need all the kindness we can get and being respectable and all that. But that's a story for another day.
And we all get frustrated.
Yeah.
And we all lash out. But, whenever you have an interaction with someone, you have to think, what am I trying to gain
Mm-hmm.
from this interaction? If I have a group of kids who I have told them, what count they need to do something on 7 times, is yelling at them really going to help?
Right.
Is that going to engage that child?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if it will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So what am I trying to gain from the way that I'm acting?
Right. And there's a difference between being stern and just yelling and, trying to prove a point or just trying to show that you're the top dog.
Yeah. Maria in The Sound of Music, she says firm but kind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly it.
So Jess, how can we stay in touch with you? How can we follow you in your journey on your new goals of how can we support this Shakespeare team?
Yeah.
The Matilda.
Yeah. So I would say follow me on Facebook and Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Are the biggest ones because that's where I post about what I'm doing the most. Mm-hmm. And then for the school, Matilda runs in late November, and I will be posting like crazy about that. So anyone who wants to come down, let me know.
All right, sounds good. Jess, I appreciate your time. I have one final question for you.
Yes.
When it's all said and done, what would you like your legacy to look like?
What would I like my legacy to look like? People who, if they hear my name, they smile. That's what I would like my legacy to be.
It's not original, but
Yeah.
I'm only teasing because someone else said that.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
nice though. I enjoy it though. It's good. It's good.
Yeah. Be the person who others their faces light up when you enter the room. That's if I'm that, I'm golden.
Also, too, guys, I forgot to mention Jess and her coaching abilities. So I'd say the students are definitely getting a great teacher. She helped me when I was auditioning for school. I didn't get the part, but it was still fun and I still learned some things. She taught me a little tap. So
yeah.
so I had to give you your props for that, So they're in great hands when it comes to that, when for teaching is for sure. But yeah, Jess, I appreciate your time. Obviously this won't be the last time we speak. And
oh no.
I'll have to come down to Salt Lake City and see what it's all about at some point. But
the air is real dry.
Nice. Well, thank you guys for joining us and joining me on another episode. Until next time, peace, love, and blessings.